Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, and thank you very much as ever for tuning in. Today I'm just going to offer you my final thoughts and roundup of the game I've got stuck over my shoulder back there, 7 Days of Westerplatte. I've played it quite a few times just to refresh my memory prior to making the second video, the playthrough. And I've played it a few more times just to get a sense of what it's like playing with perhaps all four Polish officers in play, trying it with just one. Virtually impossible if you do that. Overall, it's quite a satisfying game. It's often said of tower defense style games that they rapidly lose their appeal and they get a little bit samey. I think in some respects this would happen to 7 Days of Westerplatte eventually, but the designer has very cleverly built in a lot of wrinkles, and what I particularly like is the variation you get across the German unit cards, particularly the infantry cards. Some of them are very fleet of foot, others are slower but tougher. They take an awful lot of killing, some of them. And there's also their variable firepower. And I like the elegance of his system of placement. So you're not rigidly bound to the columns that you have. So, if you wipe out a lot of German units that are meant to deploy in column A, in a sense, it won't matter because there others can deploy to fill those gaps if necessary. So the game system has a fair degree of flexibility to it, and I find it gratifyingly hard to beat. You would, of course, get bored if a game was easily beaten. And there may be some tricks that work better than others in 7 Days of Westerplatte, but I'm one of those people who's not good at coming up with ultimate strategies for beating games like that. So I enjoy them, they're a challenge. I lose more often than I win, but that's great because you really immerse yourself. Yes, it's an oversimplified representation of a historic battle, but it works for me because at some level it achieves its objective. I feel to a very slight degree that I'm there. And all right, the criticism has been levelled of this game, and indeed many other simple approach ones like this, that you could basically reskin it with any medieval siege or even something science fiction or fantasy and it would work exactly the same. Yes, that's true. But the fact that it's Westerplatte makes the game for me. I think it works very well. Yes, perhaps I could play a medieval siege game with exactly the same rules, but I think it captures the essence of this battle very well. And I do like the mechanism for recording the passage of days. So the fact that you have to pile up 8 discarded German cards before you can move to the next day of the defense. I like the way that the random event draws at the end of the turn basically mark it's a significant event that tails off each day. So it gives it a bit of character. And of course, in the difficult game, you never quite know that. Sorry, the hardest level of play, you never quite know whether you're going to get a good event or a bad event. Of course, if you play the easy version, the events are all good. It's all lovely. So I think those little chromy bits and those wrinkles make it really feel like Westerplatte. And at the end of the day, it's accessible. I mentioned in my first video that I'd given this to my nephew as a gift, and he loved it, despite not being a gamer by inclination. And after our first game together, I was bombarded with questions about the battle, the way it had unfolded, and by the end of it, he was wanting to know, what were the differences? What did the attacking Germans have? What did the defending Poles have? What kind of rifles did they use? Did the Germans have more machine guns? what effect did it have that the Poles, despite the fact that their air force was still sort of intact during this first week of the campaign against Poland, what was the impact of not having any aircraft assigned to try and fight off the Luftwaffe? What was the practical and the morale impact of not having any naval forces to counter the presence of the Schleswig-Holstein and other German naval units? You know what? He was really interested, and it was this game that had unlocked that interest. So I would say that I've said it before, and I'll happily pop this line in again. It's great amount of fun. It's a great way to kill an hour or so. And if you've got a young person who you think might be interested in gaming in general or the history behind this battle, this is such a good introduction to that history, because it doesn't overburden players with rules. It's very straightforward. You could be playing it instinctively, you know, flying by the seat of your pants as you direct the defense of Westerplatte, you know, as a 9, 10-year-old, and it would work for you. You don't have to worry about that side. Once you understand the game, and you'll understand it quickly, it plays really well. Now, I don't quite know how. I bought my copy a few years ago, and I don't know how available it still is. It seems to fade in and out of the market, but if you fancy something a bit lightweight like this, but quite enjoyable, or if you have a youngster in the family or that you know who would potentially be interested and they just need the right game sent their way, then I would suggest that this is probably the one. Especially if they have an interest in World War II, and particularly if they want something that's a bit off the beaten track. You know, most of us are familiar with the great milestones, the campaign in the West, the Battle of Britain, the Battle of the Atlantic, or any of the significant engagements within those campaigns. But if you want something quite focused, one single 7-day battle that, I mean, of course, I'm speaking here from the comfort of my home in Britain. Britain, of course, has a massively developed sense of mythology and popular understanding of the history of the Second World War. And perhaps understandably in Britain, Westerplatte doesn't feature very much at all. The fall of brave, heroic Poland does, but Poland's Alamo passes largely unnoticed. If you want something a bit niche but still very fascinating like that, then I would recommend that game. It really is a gem. I think the designer is to be congratulated on what he has achieved. I don't know if he's designed any other games, but I certainly hope he has done, because he's clearly got a talent for it. And you can't really go wrong with this. There'll always be someone, I think, who would want to play it, and it is certainly on my gaming shelf for the duration. If you can get your hands on it, do give it a try. I think you will find it a good load of fun. And a final thing that recommends it for me, I've touched many times on how light and easy to pick up the rules are. When your gaming group is in that sort of mood where you just want something that you can play while you're having a good time and probably sharing the metaphorical and real beer and pretzels, this is a game that fits that bill very well too. So please do give it a try. And if you would like to, let me know what you think in the comments. If you have any further queries about the game, please let me know. I'll do my best to answer them. As ever, there will be some information about the game in the description under all 3 of the videos. So I hope this has been of use, and thank you very much for tuning in.